Sometimes the person you love the most is the one who destroys you the most. The lie we call love. Everyone talks about love like it's a blessing, like it's this holy, untouchable thing, soft, glowing, beautiful. They write songs about it. They build stories around it. They raise it like a monument, tall, sacred, eternal. But no one warns you about the kind that ruins you slowly. No one tells you that sometimes love doesn't come as a cure. It arrives as the wound. You give it a name. You call it home. You hold it close like it's everything you've been waiting for. But some loves don't stay. Some loves don't hold you. They hollow you. And what no one says is this: you can be in love and still be alone. You can be held and still feel cold. Love isn't always light. Sometimes it teaches through shadows. It walks into your life with a soft smile, but it leaves with everything: your peace, your strength, your sense of self. It makes promises with its eyes, but breaks them in silence. Because love, real love, isn't just words and warmth. It's choosing. It's showing up. It's staying even when it's not easy. But what most of us get, what you probably got, was the version of love that only knows how to take. The kind that feels warm at first until you realize you're the only one keeping the fire alive. And yet you stay. You stay because the pain is quieter than the loneliness. You stay because walking away feels like giving up on a dream. You stay because you keep hoping it'll change. But love that has to be begged for isn't love. It's a slow erosion of your worth. We think love will save us, but sometimes it's the very thing we need saving from. We walk into it thinking it's shelter, but it can be a storm, a quiet, aching storm that doesn't break windows, but shatters hearts. And the saddest part, most of us don't even realize we're bleeding. We call it sacrifice. We call it loyalty. We call it devotion. But really, we're just drowning with our eyes closed. You tell yourself it's love because the truth is too painful. The truth that maybe this isn't love at all. Maybe it's just need, or memory, or fear of being forgotten. And still, we love, even when it breaks us, even when it betrays us, even when it never truly arrives. Because there's something inside us, a desperate, trembling part, that still believes love should heal, that it must. But what if Parveen Shakir was right? Love is not always a healing. Sometimes it's the wound itself. And what if we've all been whispering the wrong prayer, not asking for love that stays, but settling for love that doesn't destroy? So here's the quiet truth. Love, real love, doesn't leave you questioning your worth. It doesn't vanish when you're hurting. It doesn't silence you with cold eyes and colder words. But the love we often fall for, the love we write poems about at 2 a.m., it's not pure. It's a mirror of our brokenness. It's a reflection of the emptiness we try to hide. So before we go deeper into this story, this unraveling of heartbreak and healing, let's begin with honesty. Because the saddest truth about love isn't that it ends. It's that sometimes it was never love to begin with, just the illusion of it, painted over loneliness, wrapped in temporary warmth, disguised as forever. When you give everything and they still walk away. There's nothing more soul-crushing than realizing your forever was only temporary in their eyes. Do you know what it feels like to give someone everything you had? Not just time, not just effort, but everything. Your heart, your dreams, your quiet prayers at night, Do you know what it feels like to pour yourself into someone, only to watch them walk away like it meant nothing, like you were nothing? There's a particular kind of silence that follows after they leave. It's not just the absence of their voice. It's the echo of everything you gave that was never returned. You sit with yourself, shattered, confused, humiliated, and the questions begin. Was I not enough? Did they ever truly love me? Was I just convenient? You replay every moment, every laugh, every late night call, every whispered, I love you, and suddenly they all feel like lies. You want to scream. You want to ask them how they could do this, how they could just walk away from something you were ready to die for. But they're gone. And worse, they don't look back. You see, love is only beautiful when it's mutual. But when it's one-sided, when you're the only one carrying the weight of the relationship, it breaks something in you. It breaks your ability to trust. It makes you question your own worth. Because when you give your heart and they still leave, you start to wonder if love was ever meant for people like you. You remember the moments you begged them to stay, the times you apologized for things that weren't even your fault, the way you dimmed your light just to make them feel bright. But none of it was enough. Not your loyalty, not your kindness, not the way you sacrificed your own needs just to make them smile. And one day, they stopped replying. They stopped showing up. They stopped choosing you without reason, without explanation, like you were a chapter they had already finished reading. And you were still holding on to every word, still hoping they'd come back and say, I was wrong, you mattered. But they didn't, because sometimes people only love you for what you can give them, not for who you are, not for your soul, not for the quiet battles you fight just to be enough. And when you run out of pieces to give, they leave. But here's what no one tells you. It's not your fault. It was never your job to fix their emptiness. It wasn't your responsibility to teach them how to love. You weren't meant to burn just to keep them warm, yet you did. Because when you love deeply, you love blindly. You believe in people's potential. You see their light, even when all they give you is darkness. And that's beautiful, but it's also dangerous, because some people, they will take your love, drink it like water, and still walk away thirsty. Not because you didn't give enough, but because they were never capable of receiving it. मैंने अपनी रूह तक दे दी और वो मुस्कुरा के चले गए. I gave even my soul, and they smiled as they walked away. Let that sink in. They smiled, not because they were cruel, but because your love made them feel whole. And once they had what they needed, they left, leaving you emptier than ever. But here's what I want you to know. You didn't lose them. They lost you. They lost someone who loved without conditions, who stayed without guarantees, who believed even when there was no reason to. And one day, when the noise fades, when their world grows quiet, when the people they chase can't fill the void inside them, they'll remember you. Not for how you begged, not for how you cried, but for the way you loved them. And it will haunt them, because they'll realize too late that the kind of love you gave, it doesn't come twice. So cry if you need to, break if you must, but never forget this truth. You were always enough. They just weren't ready for something real. And that is not your burden to carry anymore. The echo after they leave. Their absence is loud, louder than their love ever was. They left, And now, you're left with the echo, an unbearable silence that wraps itself around you like a storm. Not the peaceful kind, but the one that howls through empty corridors of your heart, reminding you over and over that they're no longer here. It's strange, isn't it? How someone's absence can be louder than their presence ever was. How the space they once filled now feels like a wound that refuses to close. You wake up, and the first thing you feel isn't peace, it's emptiness. A hollow ache where love used to live. Their toothbrush still stands in the cup. Their scent still lingers on your pillow. Their favorite song plays randomly, and suddenly, you're not okay anymore. You try to be. You smile in front of others. You nod when someone asks, "Are you fine now?" But inside you're collapsing in slow motion, because grief doesn't come all at once. It arrives in fragments, in flashbacks, in forgotten playlists, in memories triggered by the most random things, like the way the rain falls or the shape of someone's laugh. And the worst part? It's not just the pain of missing them. It's the pain of remembering how they chose to leave, how they watched you break and still walked away, how they knew your heart was fragile and still dropped it. You replay every conversation, every "I love you," every promise that now feels like a cruel joke. And it hurts because you weren't asking for the world. You weren't demanding perfection. All you ever wanted was for them to stay. But they didn't. And now every room feels haunted, not by ghosts, but by versions of yourself you can never be again. The version of you that believed in forever. The version of you that trusted love blindly. The version of you that smiled when their name lit up your phone. Gone. Replaced by silence. By a tired version of yourself who flinches at every goodbye. Who now sees red flags as warning signs, not colors of love. You sit in your quiet room and wonder, how did something so beautiful turn into something that ruins you? You tell yourself, they'll come back. They'll realize. They'll miss me too. But days turn into weeks, and weeks into months. And reality sets in. They're not coming back. Because if they truly loved you, they would have stayed. And that's a bitter pill to swallow. You want closure, an explanation, something, anything that makes sense. But all you're left with is the echo of the love you gave. And echoes don't answer back. They just repeat what you've already said over and over until the noise becomes unbearable. So, what do you do? How do you move on from someone you never got to say goodbye to? How do you heal from a heartbreak that left no scars, only invisible wounds that bleed in silence? You breathe, one painful inhale at a time. You learn to live without them, not because you want to, but because you have to. You wipe your own tears. You hold your own hand. You become the comfort they never were, and slowly, very slowly, you begin to rebuild. Not the same version of you. That one is gone, but a quieter version, a softer one that still believes in love, but no longer begs for it. And when the echo returns, when the memories try to flood back in, you remind yourself you survived their absence. You endured the silence. You became your own home. So no, you didn't lose everything. You lost someone who didn't know how to stay. But you found someone even more important, yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that's the beginning of something beautiful. The lie of forever. They told you. Forever sounded beautiful until it became a promise they broke with ease. They looked you in the eyes and said, I'm not going anywhere. They held your hand with trembling fingers and whispered, I'm yours, always. And for a moment, you believed them, because why wouldn't you? Their voice was steady, their eyes didn't flinch, their warmth felt real, and the world around you stood still as their promises echoed in your chest like sacred poetry. You built your world around their forever, not knowing that for them, forever was just a word, not a vow, not a weight, not a truth, just a sound they knew you needed to hear. And so they gave it to you like a child giving away a paper flower, beautiful but fragile, delicate but not meant to last. You replay it now, that moment they said they'd stay, and it hurts because they said it like they meant it. They looked so sincere, so believable, and you, with your open heart, you didn't doubt them for a second. You let your guard down. You let them in. You showed them your scars and said, please, don't add more. They nodded. But when the time came, when love asked for effort, when commitment meant staying through the storms, they left. And they didn't leave with an apology. They didn't whisper, I'm sorry, while holding your broken heart. They left like it was easy, like you were forgettable, like every forever they spoke was a story they told to pass the time. And you were left holding the remains of a promise. You searched their texts, you rewound old voice notes, you held on to screenshots like evidence in a courtroom, proof that once, just once, they meant it. But promises don't keep you warm at night. They don't wipe your tears. They don't explain why love turns cold without warning. And so you learn the painful truth. People lie, sometimes not with malice, but with weakness. They say forever in the moment because they want to mean it. But wanting isn't enough. Love needs more than pretty words. It needs consistency. It needs presence. It needs someone who doesn't just say, I won't leave, but proves it every single day. And they didn't. They gave you a castle made of glass and left when the first stone of reality shattered it. You're angry, not just at them, but at yourself, for trusting so easily, for believing in fairy tales, for ignoring the red flags because your heart was too desperate to feel safe. But let me tell you something that might sting at first, but heal later. It wasn't your fault. You loved with truth. You believed with hope. You gave your heart to someone who asked for it. They were the ones who couldn't carry the weight. They were the ones who mistook your loyalty for convenience. They said forever, but meant until I'm bored, until it gets hard, until someone else makes me feel something new. That wasn't love. That was comfort. That was control. That was a performance where you were the only one acting honestly. And now, you're the one left to heal from a promise that was never real. But here's the miracle in all this pain. You survived a lie. You outlived a fake forever. You endured the collapse of something that was built to fail. And now, you know better. You won't fall for words again, not unless they come with actions, not unless they show up day after day, when it's messy, when it's hard, when it's inconvenient. You don't need forever anymore. You need truth. You need effort. You need presence. And the next time someone says they'll stay, you won't just listen, you'll watch. Because love, real love, doesn't announce itself with grand promises. It shows up quietly. It holds you when you're not okay. It chooses you again and again, even when the world tries to pull it apart. That's the kind of love you deserve, not a love built on lies, not a love that disappears at the first sign of struggle, but a love that stays, that fights, that shows up. And one day, you'll find it. And when you do, you'll realize something even more powerful than any forever they once promised. You never needed them. You just needed yourself and the truth. You loved them more than you loved yourself. In the war between your worth and their presence, you chose them every time. You gave them everything, but forgot to leave something for yourself. You bent, you broke, you dimmed your own light just so theirs could shine brighter, and you called it love. You stayed up comforting them through every breakdown. But when your world was falling apart, they didn't even notice. You answered their calls at 3 a.m., dropped everything when they needed you. But when you needed someone to just sit beside you in silence, they were too busy. You excused their coldness. You justified their distance. You forgave their silence because the thought of losing them felt scarier than losing yourself. You made them your home without checking if they even had room for you in theirs. And somewhere along the way, you disappeared. Piece by piece, you erased your needs, your desires, your boundaries, because keeping them close mattered more than keeping yourself whole. You loved them more than you loved yourself. And they knew. They saw how easily you surrendered, how quickly you apologized, how silently you hurt, just to keep the peace. They saw the cracks, and instead of helping you heal, they poured in more pressure, and still you stayed, because in your mind, this was love, sacrifice, compromise, endless patience, endless waiting. You believed that if you just gave a little more, they'd finally see your worth. They'd finally come around. They'd finally choose you with the same passion you chose them. But they never did. Because why would they? You never asked for anything back. You never demanded respect. You never reminded them that you mattered too. And now you're left with an ache so deep, even silence echoes like screams. You lie awake wondering, was I too much? Was I not enough? What else could I have done? But the real question should be, why did I love someone who didn't love me like I deserved? You thought your love would fix them. You thought your loyalty would teach them how to care. You thought being soft, being patient, being forgiving would eventually melt their walls. But love isn't supposed to be a rescue mission. You weren't supposed to lose yourself to prove you were worthy. And now you're tired. Tired of giving. Tired of pretending. Tired of carrying the weight of a relationship you held together alone. But listen closely. You're not weak. You're not foolish. You're not unworthy. You just loved from a place of purity, a place so rare in this world that many don't know how to receive it. You loved without games, without manipulation, without ego. But love, real love, shouldn't feel like self-abandonment. You shouldn't have to shrink to be held. You shouldn't have to break just to be seen. You deserve a love where your voice isn't an interruption, but a melody someone wants to hear. A love where your tears matter, your needs are met, your boundaries are honored. You deserve to be chosen, not out of convenience, but out of truth. And now it's time. Time to choose yourself. Time to return home to your own heart. Time to rebuild the parts of you that you gave away too easily. You are not the love they failed to return. You are the love you kept trying to give. So give it to yourself. Speak kindly to your soul. Feed your spirit with gentleness. Surround yourself with people who reflect your light, not those who dim it. And remember, self-love isn't selfish. It's survival. It's healing. It's the first step toward never settling again. Because the most dangerous kind of heartbreak is the one you cause yourself by choosing others over your own well-being. And you've done that long enough. So this time, when you love, let yourself be one of the people you love most. They moved on like you meant nothing. You carried the memories like sacred scriptures. They carried you like forgettable dust. It's the most haunting silence you've ever known. The space they left behind, echoing louder than any goodbye. They moved on, just like that, as if you never meant anything. As if all those late night talks, all those quiet moments, all those soft I love yous were just background noise in their story. No closure, no explanation, just a slow fade into indifference. And you were left holding the fragments, memories like shattered glass, cutting you every time you tried to pick them up and make sense of what went wrong. It's strange, isn't it? How someone can become your entire world and then vanish, as if your heart was just a place they passed through on the way to somewhere better. You thought you were building something. You thought it mattered. You thought they cared. But people don't always break things with a bang. Sometimes they just stop showing up, stop trying, stop choosing you. And the cruelest part, they smiled in new photos. They laughed in new places. They fell into someone else's arms while you were still trying to breathe through the pieces they left behind. You wondered if they ever looked back, if your name ever echoed in their mind the way theirs still lived in every corner of yours. But deep down, you knew the truth. They moved on like you never existed. And that truth hurt more than anything they ever said. Because how do you grieve someone who's still alive, still laughing, still glowing, just no longer in your orbit? How do you heal when the world expects you to move on too, but your heart still beats in the past? You try. You distract yourself. You smile when people ask. You say, "I'm fine," like a practiced lie. But at night, in the quiet, you remember the softness of their voice, the way their fingers fit between yours, the look in their eyes when they said they'd never leave. And you wonder, were they lying? Or did they just stop feeling? You scroll through your old texts. You revisit old photos. You replay every moment, trying to spot where it started to fade. But the truth is, it doesn't always fade. Sometimes people just outgrow their affection. Sometimes they're not who you imagined them to be. Sometimes they only stayed long enough to feel whole, then left once they found someone else to fill the silence. And yet you stayed loyal to the memory of them. You defended them in your mind. You romanticized the pain. You blamed yourself for not being enough. As if love was a test, you failed. But listen closely. Their inability to love you deeply is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their capacity. Some people only know how to take, how to absorb your energy, your softness, your loyalty, until you're empty. And when you finally need something back, they're already gone. You were not too much. You were not too emotional. You were not too intense. You were just real. And real scares people who are only used to temporary love. They didn't leave because you lacked something. They left because they never knew how to hold something that genuine. And while they moved on, you began the real journey, reclaiming yourself. It doesn't happen overnight. There are nights when the sadness crawls back in, days when a song breaks you, moments when your chest aches with a longing you can't explain. But slowly, you begin to breathe again. You begin to look at your reflection without flinching. You begin to rebuild from the ashes they left. Because what they left behind wasn't ruin. It was space. Space for something better. Space for someone deeper. Space for your own healing. Let them go. Let their absence be a lesson, not a punishment. Let their silence teach you that closure is something you give yourself. Because moving on doesn't mean forgetting. It means no longer needing answers to feel free. And someday, when you least expect it, you'll smile at the thought of them without the sting in your heart. You'll remember the love you gave and feel proud. Because even if they didn't honor it, you did. You loved truly. And in a world that forgets how to feel, that is your power. So let them move on. You move forward. Loneliness teaches you what love never could. In the silence of being alone, you meet the version of yourself love always made you forget. There is a kind of silence that doesn't come from the absence of sound, but from the absence of someone. When the house is quiet, but your heart is louder than ever, screaming in the stillness, craving a presence that no longer exists. That's when loneliness walks in, not as a punishment, but as a mirror, a brutally honest mirror that shows you the parts of yourself you were too distracted to notice when you were busy being loved. You see, love is intoxicating. It blinds you. It wraps around your flaws and insecurities like a soft blanket, making you forget they ever existed. You mold yourself. You shrink your needs. You adapt. You become whatever they needed you to be just to keep them around. But then they're gone, and the silence starts speaking. It asks you, who are you when no one is watching? What do you want when you're not trying to be wanted? What parts of yourself have you buried beneath the weight of being enough for someone else? That's what loneliness teaches you. The things love never did. Because love, at least the kind you had, wasn't always honest. It was loud, yes, but it wasn't clear. It was full of promises, but empty in presence. It was warm in words, but cold in follow-through. And in that loneliness, you begin to see the difference between being loved and being seen. You start to notice how often you ignored your own boundaries, how often you said yes when your soul was screaming no, how often you stayed just to avoid being alone, not realizing that being half-loved is lonelier than being alone. Because loneliness doesn't abandon you. It doesn't lie to you. It doesn't pretend. It just sits with you. Uncomfortable at first, unbearable even, but slowly it becomes your teacher. You learn how to be your own home. You learn how to sit with your sadness without rushing to silence it. You learn how to listen to your pain without judging it. And eventually, you stop craving their validation. You stop waiting for the text. You stop replaying the memories trying to find meaning in their absence. Instead, you find meaning in your own presence. You start doing things for yourself. You read for your soul, not for distraction. You take long walks without needing a hand to hold. You make tea for one, and it doesn't feel like a tragedy anymore, because somewhere along the way, you stopped being lonely and started becoming whole. You realize you were never really afraid of being alone. You were afraid of facing the version of yourself you abandoned in love, the version that was too emotional, too much, too intense, too soft. But now, that version is your anchor, your truth, your strength. Because what loneliness teaches you, what love never did, is that your worth is not defined by who chooses to stay. It is defined by how gently you hold yourself when everyone else lets go. You begin to see that love is not always rescue. Sometimes it's escape, sometimes it's distraction, sometimes it's illusion. But loneliness, it's honest, painfully so. And that honesty, that raw confrontation with your soul, that's where your healing begins. It's in the moments you cry alone and still find the courage to wake up the next day. It's in the nights you whisper, "I'll be okay," even when your heart doesn't believe it yet. It's in the silence where your true voice finally speaks. And one day, you look in the mirror and see someone you fought to become, someone who didn't give up, someone who broke but rebuilt. Not for love, not for anyone else, but for the one person who was always there beneath the pain, you. And that is the most sacred kind of love, not the one that promises forever, but the one that chooses you even when no one else does. So if you're sitting in your loneliness tonight, let it stay. Let it teach you. Let it strip away everything that was never really you. Because when love leaves and loneliness arrives, that's when you finally meet yourself. And in that meeting, you will learn you were never alone. You were just waiting to come home to yourself. Letting go isn't losing, it's liberation. You're not letting go of them. You're releasing the version of yourself that kept breaking just to keep them. They always make letting go sound like loss, like failure, like something you should regret, like something that should break you. But here's what they don't tell you. Letting go isn't weakness. It's not giving up. It's not surrendering. It's choosing yourself in a world that taught you to choose them over and over again. It's the moment you stop bleeding for someone who never even noticed you were wounded. It's the day you stop texting, not out of pride, but because you finally accepted that silence is more respectful than chasing someone who never intended to stay. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't love them. It means you loved them so much that it hurt you to hold on. And you finally decided to stop setting yourself on fire to keep their warmth. It means you looked at all the almosts, all the broken promises, all the unspoken apologies, and said, "I deserve more than waiting for someone to finally see my worth." Because love that leaves every time it gets hard was never rooted deep enough to grow. And love that makes you beg for crumbs was never meant to feed your soul. Letting go is liberation. It is the reclaiming of your soul from a place it never truly belonged. It's choosing peace over chaos that looked like passion. It's choosing clarity over confusion disguised as connection. It's choosing healing over the comfort of pain you got used to. You stop asking why they couldn't love you better. You stop replaying the memories as if a different ending will suddenly appear. You stop waiting for closure from the person who shattered you, because their silence was your answer all along. You start walking away not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself. You understand that some people don't leave because they don't love you. They leave because they don't know how to love you without destroying you in the process. And some loves, they aren't meant to be lifelines. They're lessons. Lessons in boundaries, lessons in red flags, lessons in what happens when you ignore your intuition just to feel chosen. But now, you're choosing yourself, and that changes everything. The tears still come, yes. Healing isn't neat. It's not poetic. It's messy. It's relapses and regrets. It's nights where you miss them and mornings where you remember why they had to go. But slowly, day by day, you feel lighter. You notice the absence of anxiety where there once was a storm. You stop waiting for their name to light up your screen. You stop rewriting messages you'll never send. And one day, you stop checking if they still think about you because you're too busy rebuilding the parts of yourself they kept tearing down. You create new routines, new peace, new joy. Not the kind that depends on someone else, but the kind that grows within you because you finally stopped watering a dead garden. Letting go isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering and still choosing to move forward. It's not about pretending it never mattered. It's about accepting that it did and still choosing yourself anyway. You forgive them, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve the freedom of not carrying their ghosts anymore. You forgive yourself too, for staying too long, for giving too much, for loving someone who didn't know what to do with something so pure. You begin to trust your heart again, gently, cautiously, but fully. You understand now, letting go isn't loss. It's space. It's making room for the kind of love that won't ask you to shrink, that won't fear your depth, that won't leave when you're hard to hold. The love you're seeking will not require you to break yourself in half just to feel whole. So let them go, not bitterly, not angrily, just peacefully. Close the door, not to shut them out, but to finally welcome yourself in. You are not what they left behind. You are what rises after. The heartbreak was real, but so is your healing, so is your strength, so is your future, and it is beautiful. Because now, finally, you're walking forward, not looking for them, but walking toward you.